Hello, and welcome to the Sports by Compion. My name, of course, is your host, Stephen Compion, joined here by a special guest, friend of the show, George McHattie himself in the building. How are you, George?
Tired after that training session. That was brutal.
That was a very hot training session that we just took place here with the Rockford Ravens. Before we hop into some of this World Cup rugby, of course, it would be remiss if I didn't mention my co-host, Daniel Gill, is currently being attacked by the death plague. So, best wishes to him. Hopefully, we don't lose him forever, George. You know what I'm saying? It'd be really sad.
Daniel Gill. Why does that name ring a bell to me?
Because he used to be a Rockford Raven back in last spring, and he's at Horfest. I touched the other day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Dan. So he's my co-host. Anyway, sick, Daniel. We wish you the best. Hopefully you don't die. But we have some rugby to cover today, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm glad that you're with us because I brought our English resident expert to help us cover this rugby. We're both disappointed in our nation rugby performance so far. But before we get into that, on a much lighter and happier note, the Rockford Ravens are very, very close to kickoff for our fall season. There's a lot of anticipation surrounding this game. Carfu has written off the Rockford Ravens. They don't think they expect much out of us. They only mentioned Peoria, maybe the Blaze having a chance against
the Riot.
Good old Riot. But they have pretty much discounted the Rockford Ravens, which is, I guess, fair, George. We have been at the bottom of the pile the last couple of years, so it's only reasonable that they be discounting us. But I do believe it has the boys fired up. We are welcoming the Blaze to town to start. I think we've mentioned that on this podcast before, but it's worth bringing up again. Big game to start off the year, George. What do you think about your Rockford Ravens? Are they ready?
I think we're going to win the first game.
I do too. I think we could win that one.
I don't really rate the Blaze. Never really have. I know they're luckily for us, their second team is playing away at the time. So they're not going to have an influx of studs that are going to start for their team. Secondly, the Riot's going to be a bastard of a game that we need to get numbers.
Hold on, but before we move on to that one, because that is a huge home game, and what do you think it would mean for this team to be able to take down a team that ended the year in the top three, right underneath Peoria, right underneath the Riot, played those two teams very close. So for a team that finished towards the bottom of the pile, this is a small division, no doubt in that. But to take down a team that's two spots ahead of you, it's pretty big, huh? To start off the season.
Yeah, it'd be a milestone. It really will. I don't know what that will do our league's rankings, but no, that'll be.
It'd be a huge shakeup. It'd be a huge shakeup in week 2. Obviously, the Ravens don't get involved with the action until week 2. But we could come in with a big old splash to start off our year. I think it'll set us in the right mood, the right kind of confidence headed into that Riot game, which is going to be tough. Is that the one you're missing, George?
What was that, mate?
Are you missing that one, the Riot game?
No, I'm there for the Riot game. I wouldn't miss the Riot game. I hate the drive because it's downtown Chicago. But...
And nobody likes to be in downtown Chicago. Driving wise, I get some of you love living down there, and God bless you. But man, driving there is a nightmare.
It's like an hour and a half on a good day.
Well, the thing is, the first hour is fine, and then you get to the Orange City for that last 30 to 45 minutes, and it's just utter chaos.
And it's you go 2 miles, and it's
yeah, 2 miles takes forever.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have a bit of a vendetta against the Riot because I find them to be very, very arrogant, I was seeing some of the Peoria boys, the Riot were texting them some mad shit that they lost to the Gargoyles. And it was come on, behave yourself, mate. It's a rugby game at the end of the day, and 15 men versus 15, anything's in the air,
They are very arrogant, but maybe they have a right to be right now because they are running this division. Now that Fox Valley has exited, dude, they're getting 37 people to practice every day. It's hard to compete with that as these smaller clubs that we're trying to build up. But I I don't think anybody besides them has the funnel. Well, the Blaze kind of, but then all their best players are going to end up on their D2 squad.
Yeah, the Blaze have their own issues. The fact that you have to buy beer is.
Yeah, they're all weird. But that aside, I mean, really, as far as the Riot goes, unless you're going down to Peoria to play them, Peoria is not great on the road. So that's why I'm excited about them coming to us this year, because we were very close to beating them last fall with what I think is a much inferior team to what we have now, George.
So our games go Blaze at home, Riot away, Peoria at home, then Lake County, then Indiana, then who else? That's it.
Woodsman are at home as well.
Woodsman.
Honestly, all three of our home games are very winnable. We have a chance to go undefeated at home.
Yeah, that
would be a big statement.
Luck.
We are one of those teams that's hard to beat at home because there's no doubt we don't travel well.
Well, when you have the old boy structure that our team has and they're all cheering you on, it's hard not to put your best foot forward.
100%. Our home crowds are really good. Between the women's team, the Lyra members, and our old boys, we get a good crowd out. It's really nice. And, of course, the families, who come out to support their teams. So, yeah, Rockford Ravens looking hot this year. It might be a big year for the boys. I don't want to call it too soon, but I'm excited, George.
I hope so, too, to be honest.
Now, talking into some more, advanced rugby where they don't suck as much as us.
England, Wales, and the USA at the moment.
So, yeah, hopping right into that. So, just so you guys know, if you want to keep up to date with this semi-vague rugby coverage, you should like and subscribe to the channel so that you keep on getting these updates. Isn't that right, George?
Yes, sir.
Now, anyway, hopping into some of these games where there's lots that's taking place, there's lots still to come, but we pulled up 4 in particular. Let's start with the least spicy and head towards the more spicy as we go. So, Samoa takes on the Barbarians. And I thought this one was interesting because we know the Barbarians to be a good team. This is a big win for Samoa regardless, because I'm fucking this up, right? Somalia? Is it Somalia? Or no, Samoa. I'm sorry, Samoa. So I just saw I just saw a Squiddage Rugby video about Samoa. This could be a sleeper team here. I mean, they're in a nasty division, as all these divisions are kind of nasty, but they have
so competitive
right now. But they have some ballers, man. It's going to be interesting. So, Squiddage Rugby will have you believe that all these teams are going to win the World Cup, though. So.
Right? Watch him.
It's kind of interesting. So anyway, it was a big win for them. I think it's a nice confidence booster as they head into the World Cup here. Any thoughts on this one, George?
Samoa is a brutal team to go against. Whatever teams have them in the pool stages, you've got to put your A team out because the Pacific Islanders are the best rugby players in the world, so you can never sleep on them, but they are going to beat the ever-living crap out of your A team.
Checks out. That is what they're known for, is apparently just big hits and such.
Yes, Samoa definitely. They're monsters,
Good for them. Well, they should provide some noise headed into the World Cup. Wales was looking like they might do that in these summer games. They're looking pretty good. Took out England, but they seem to have ran into a buzzsaw with South Africa here. They pick up a couple yellow cards, but South Africa picks up one too, so can't even really blame that. They sort of just got ran over, George.
South Africa is a juggernaut of a rugby nation, and
this is the hottest they've looked in a minute, though.
Wales. I'm going to go on a bit of a thing. Welsh rugby has basically early last year are bankrupt. They've cut all of their players' wages by half, so they're really struggling at the moment. And it was just mismanagement. It was just purely mismanagement because a lot of these international rugby teams only earn money through jerseys and through selling tickets. at the stadiums. So Wales is bankrupt. But Wales has a fantastic support following. You know, that Principality Stadium is never not full. Never not full.
So crazy.
You know, and that's 90,000 people in that stadium.
Yeah. So yeah, it's tough for the Welsh crowd to see because they are loyal as heck. So it's kind of a bummer for them. Good. The thing with South Africa is they are definitely a juggernaut, but they've been kind of sort of finding their stride a little bit here. This is one of the first games they've really put up these kinds of numbers. So I'd be curious to kind of dive into this game a little bit more and see what exactly happened. Was it just a bad day for the Welsh, or is this something they should be a little more worried about? Because I'm pretty sure South Africa is in their group coming up this World Cup. So
South Africa is just that much better than Wales.
That could be.
South African rugby is the most simple rugby. They run the 3-3-1 system, which we're trying to emulate. So what it is you beat the ever-living shit out of the opponent in the middle field, and when the wingers come in to make a tackle, you ship the ball out wide. And that is it's the simplest rugby formulation in the world. Where you pass the ball to where the space is, but in the making of space, you get these monster forwards that are all weighing 250, 280 pounds, just hitting you like a battering ram. And obviously, it takes 2-3 people to tackle these big battering rams, and then they pass it to the fast guys.
Checks out, and they got some fast guys, man. That 14 is a monster.
Africa is full of fast people, as you can tell.
All right, well, moving on. We got Ireland versus England, and England picks up a red card here, and then just proceeds to get absolutely mauled by their arch nemesis. What is going on with England rugby right now? They got their asses kicked by the Welsh. They got their asses kicked by Ireland. Are you a little worried? They just fired their coach. Like, what's going on here?
England fired the best World Cup coach in the world. Eddie Jones was by far the best person that you want a year out from the World Cup to win you a World Cup or get you really far into a World Cup. And what they did is they fired it for a forward coach at the best team in England. And essentially, they fired him 9 months out from the World Cup. And there is no symmetry to what he's playing. You know, it's something like there has been 6 hours of rugby since the last time an English back has scored a try, which is just terrible. You know, backs are there to score tries. Forwards are there to put the backs in the position to score the tries.
Yeah, what? That's crazy.
So something's going wrong. Discipline's a huge issue. You know, the captain of England got red carded last game against Wales, and now our big number 8 has just been red carded for the exact same offence, nailing somebody in the head. Both the big number 8 that got red carded during Ireland games probably going to get a 5 to 6 week game suspension, which will put him out of the World Cup. You know, he'll be well past the pool stages by the time they get him back.
Jeez.
And Owen Farrell, who's the captain of England, who's the fly half, has just got a 4-match suspension. So that puts him into literally the middle of the pool stages. Yes.
Dude, it's falling apart. But all right, so just going back to this whole coach thing, what were they thinking? So, like we said, Squidditch Rugby paints a picture. The guy, knows how to, sell whatever it is he's selling you for that video. And, he made a video about how Eddie Jones is basically building his England team to win the World Cup. He didn't care about pretty much any of this other stuff and was just focused on the World Cup. And then you fire the man less than a year before something he's been preparing for years. It's insane to me. It's insane. Whoever's running this ship, you thought changing someone at helm 9 months before the World Cup was the move, dude?
It was a colossal fuck up.
Dude.
It was. And you know what the stupid thing is? They had to buy him out of his contract. You know? So they had to buy the head coach out of his contract, which costs about £3 million.
Jesus, dude.
So you know, all sports have suffered terribly during COVID. And then they decided to get rid of the best coach at putting English.
Who made that decision, man?
The president of the RFU, the Rugby Football Union.
He's a fucking idiot.
Exactly.
He's a moron. I don't know who that guy is, but he's a fucking idiot.
Like, who does that? Like, we have... And
it's like the most important tournament ever that's comes up only once every 4 fucking years, and let me fucking fuck with my team right before we go into it.
Exactly. And you know what the stupid thing is? You could call this World Cup a home World Cup because it's literally in France, which is 37 miles away from England. Literally, it is a home World Cup.
Sad.
And
you could be bringing it home.
You've literally gone, okay, I have fired the best World Cup coach in the world 9 months out from the World Cup. And it's because he didn't take the Six Nations seriously enough. Basically, he was building to win a World Cup. Yeah. England has won about 10 Six Nations in the last 20 years. They are not hard done by him.
Yeah.
So who gives a crap about Six Nations when we have won one World Cup and we have the best head coach in the world at getting us to World Cup finals?
Someone's taking Six Nations too seriously. I mean, granted, you want to do well there, but France and Ireland were fucking on fire this year, and it's like, I understand just being like, whatever, man, let's focus on the World Cup. This is what matters.
Yes.
So, yeah. Interesting moves, to say the least, over there with the English. Hopefully they can maybe figure it out before the World Cup, because it's upon us. It's upon us, George. Now, moving into another game here, which I had some hopes and dreams for about, George. I've ranted a lot about this, and I was like thinking I was going to get all excited about this one again and really get into it, and I don't really know what else to say here, man. U.S. is not taking rugby seriously, is what this score tells me. Granted, Georgia is probably the best, definitely is the best Tier 2 rugby nation in the world. They probably should be a Tier 1 nation rugby at this point. They're very fucking good. Regardless, what the fucking fuck, U.S.? Get it together, man! We have better athletes than I think anywhere in the world. It's fucking ridiculous. 22-7? This is why you're not in the World Cup. Because you're getting smashed by the champions of the fucking Tier 2 nations. Dude, we should be the champions of a Tier 2 nation. What are we doing? It's fucking ridiculous. Like, get it together. Play better rugby. How fucking hard is it to get some fucking decent athletes out there? Fuck, man.
Yeah, well,
apparently we need to get these boys paid is what it comes down to. We need to get the boys paid. They're not getting paid right now. That's why they're not playing rugby.
Well, most of them play in Europe, to be honest.
But wouldn't you come back to play for Team USA during this stuff, like qualifying for the World Cup and such? If you're really good and you're playing out there in Europe, which there are a few really good players, and it's like, I don't know, man. I just think if they're getting paid, if MLR was bigger thing, which, you know, maybe I'm just being impatient and it's going to be a couple years from now this will all come to fruition, but I think that's on every single rugby player, every single guy who cares about U.S. rugby. In your own little area, fucking do what you can to help rugby grow, because you never know. Maybe you'll be the one who will find some fucking stud who's in high school, and he's like, fuck football, dude. Let me play this sport. And he just turns into the next best rugby.
Yeah.
I mean, even the under-21s are getting their ass kicked. Like, I saw a score of theirs back in July or something. We could do a deep search into this, but you guys will have to take my word for it. A freaking African country, no less. Not to be an asshole, but African countries don't have very good rugby programs besides South Africa. Am I wrong, George?
No. Other than that, the only recognizable country, Kenya has a fantastic sevens team.
That doesn't surprise me.
You know, Namibia is probably mid-range Tier 2 team.
That might have been who beat them. But it's like their under 20 team fucking rock. It was a very close game. I'm tired of like trying to pretend like, all right. So I did make a silver lining earlier before me and George started this podcast. So boys, take a look at this score right here: Georgia versus Romania, 56-6. Romania is a World Cup team. They're going to be in the World Cup this year. U.S. beat them over here, as you can see, and yeah, we didn't get smashed as bad by Georgia. But I mean, since when is the U.S. the type of country that's like, yeah, at least we didn't lose as bad? Like, get it together. Anyway, that's all I have to say about fucking U.S. rugby. Get it the fuck together, boys.
USA started its own sports, and ever since then, they've only ever cared about baseball, basketball,
and football.
Well,
it's what they get paid to do. It's what they're getting paid to do right now. Like, if you're an up-and-coming athlete who can play basketball or football, dude, why wouldn't you do that? You're going to make millions of dollars as opposed to maybe a couple hundred playing rugby.
If I was the head coach of USA Rugby or the decision maker of USA Rugby, I would offer European kids just out of school like proper rugby, good rugby playing credentials. I would make the LMR give them good contracts. Be the first to pick it up and build your team off of a good foreign backbone without having this American football indoctrination. My dad was saying, he's like, you the Ravens, train harder than majority of European semi-pro to professional rugby teams.
I don't know about that. I went to those Scotland practices. They were fucking hard, dude. I was gassing for her. Granted, the elevation was a little weird. Who knows? It was hard.
It's not as hard as you would think it is. So what is the difference? It's because the American player has got this mentality that has been brought into him through playing flag football, through playing sports at his own school, through being a stud at college. Every stud at college runs ridiculously hard at 100 miles an hour. Rugby isn't a 100-mile-an-hour sport. As you can see when we're doing unopposed, as soon as you take it from 90% to 100 miles an hour, things start happening where there's a lot more forward passes, a lot more drops. Today's sort of the game.
But a counter to that, some of the best teams just operate that fast. Like if you look at France, if you look at Ireland, they're able to operate at that fast level, and they're able to. But I will say, I agree with you that a lot of it smash rugby was what the U.S., what Midwest rugby is all about. Is smash rugby. All right, let's maybe throw it out to these backs. Whereas a lot of the world, like especially the best countries, is finesse rugby. That's like the most. That's the most. Best form of rugby really is the finesse stuff. Is when you see these fly halves from France just tuck it, and fucking kick it to his wing, and it's a beautiful try right there. Like that's the stuff you see, or quick passes out when they're on the edge, and that's the stuff that wins you games.
International rugby is based around three things, and it's all forwards. Everybody thinks that well, everybody doesn't believe me when I say forwards win games. They most definitely do. Absolutely. If you have a dominant scrum, you get front football every single time. You're pushing their scrum back, means their defense has to go back. The backs have to go back. It allows the backs to have that little extra second and two on offense. Another thing is winning your fucking lineouts and mauling properly. The third thing is clearing your ruck so the scrum half has fast ball. Other than that, you can build a team around those three things. Learning how to ruck is really easy. You just dive over the fucker and hit the fucker that's trying to get the ball.
Pretty easy, but it's easy to know what to do. It's not necessarily holding onto those rucks are hard sometimes.
Exactly. Well, and scrumming as well. A dominant scrum will win you the game. Unless the team you're playing against has an absolutely magnificent stud of a winger, you will win the game if you win your scrum.
Yeah, right. If you're dominating that scrum, it is a huge problem for the other team.
Exactly. If you have a good hooker as well, the game opens up because then you can win back lost possession and that's when you can just strangle teams, as long as your backs can tackle.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So we are spitting distance from World Cup rugby. We have some phenomenal rugby still taking place. There's some huge games coming up. I love this one between Scotland and Georgia. That's going to be a heck of a game. Japan and Italy should be scrappy. Samoa gets a chance to go against Ireland. That should be interesting. See if they can keep up with those fast boys. And Australia.
If I was the Irish head coach, I would be dreading that game, because you have to maintain momentum. International rugby is about making the other team fear what you're going to do to them. If I was Ireland's head coach, I would be shitting myself about that game, because you're going to have to play your Sextons, you're going to have to play your Omanis, you're going to have to play your studs, your standard first team teams, because you can't sleep on a Pacific Island team.
No.
Especially not one that tackles you as hard as fucking Samoa does. No, I would not be surprised if there's going to be 2 injuries on Ireland's side from Samoa over the weekend. They are going to demolish Ireland. Ireland's obviously going to win the game, but the hits are going to be, you're going to hear them through the TV and the ref's mic. Because Samoa don't fuck around with rugby.
All right. Well, I saw some high praise from George. I agree. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Unfortunately, we are busy that Saturday, so it's going to be hard to see any of those games. We also got France and Australia, as well as that Friday, which we may be able to do something about. Friday, New Zealand, South Africa at 1:30.
August 25th.
So that's this Friday, 1:30. Now that is a heck of a game, George.
The France-Australia, I'm really interested in Scotland as well. Scotland has beaten France. Scotland is, I believe, 4th or 3rd in world rankings at the moment.
Are they really? No, must be 4th, because they've been kind of losing a lot. So,
they beat France on Saturday, August the 5th.
They did, didn't they? Yeah. No, they did. You're right.
And then they lost to them by 3. So
yeah, that's a good point. And so then they have this game coming up against Georgia, and this is by no means an easy game for Scotland. They're gonna, like you said, have to play all their studs here. We'll probably see Jamie Ritchie out there. Probably see Hansen. No, yeah. Watson. I don't know. Anyway,
it's all about the scrum. Georgia scrums so good. Yeah. So Scotland's just got to make sure that they don't injure their front row.
Absolutely. Well, George, any final thoughts for these fine people of Sports by Compion?
No. Let's just get out and do something, Don't be a lazy fuck your whole life.
Go do some sports, dudes, because, the summer's almost over, and before you know it, it's going to be cold as heck out there. Thank you for tuning in to this lovely program, Sports by Compion.